The night was quiet, too quiet for the village of Ntoala. Even the crickets seemed to whisper instead of sing. The moon hung high, spilling silver light across the mud walls of the compound. The wind carried the faint scent of roasted yam from far-off fires, and all seemed at peace. But inside the largest hut of the compound, a darkness moved. She lay asleep on her raffia mat, her chest rising and falling like the slow rhythm of a drum. Her name was Nnenna, and she was the jewel of Ntoala. Her beauty was undeniable. Her hair fell in long black waves that caught the light like river water. Her skin glowed with the warmth of the earth, and her eyes held a softness that calmed storms. But it wasn't beauty that made the villagers love her. It was her heart. She was the girl who carried a blind elder's basket across the market square. She was the girl who lifted firewood for the widow whose hands trembled with age. She was the one who knelt in the dust to bind a crying child's wound. Nnenna's voice was gentle, her words few, but her smile, her smile. When she smiled, the whole village seemed to pause, as if the gods themselves leaned down to listen. But tonight, her smile was hidden in dreams. And while she slept, her stepmother crept in. Madame Ebele moved like a shadow, her bare feet silent on the clay floor. In her hand, she clutched a pair of rusted iron scissors, their blades worn but still cruel. Her lips twisted into a smile, not of joy, but of envy, sharp enough to cut deeper than any blade. If I cannot destroy her spirit, Madame Ebele whispered to herself, then I will destroy her crown. She knelt beside the sleeping girl, her heart thudding with a wicked rhythm. She lifted a lock of Nnenna's long black hair and snipped. The sound was small, but to Madame Ebele it rang like victory. A thick strand fell on the mat, then another and another, until the floor was littered with broken pieces of pride. She hacked unevenly, leaving bald patches and rough tufts, until Nnenna's head looked like a battlefield, her beauty violated, her glory mocked. When Madame Ebele finally stood, her chest swelled with satisfaction. She looked down at the girl she despised and spat on the mat. "Let us see if the village still bows for you, jewel of Ntoala," she sneered. Nnenna had not always lived under cruelty. Her mother, Ogechi, had been the kind of woman whose laughter could be heard from one end of the village to another. But Ogechi died when she was only 8 years old. Her father, a man of silence and simple wisdom, remarried the following year. He brought home Madame Ebele. At first, she came with a smile as smooth as palm wine and a voice dripping with sweetness. She plaited Nnenna's hair, calling her "my dear," and pressed food into her hands. She brought her own daughter, Chisom, who was polite, pretty, and painfully aware of the shadow Nnenna cast over her. But sweetness can rot. It wasn't long before Madame Ebele's laughter grew thin, her touches cold. Nnenna's mother's necklace disappeared, then her sandals, then her best wrapper. Every time Nnenna asked, Madame Ebele shrugged. Perhaps if you kept your head out of the clouds, you would not misplace things. Still, Nnenna carried on, her spirit unshaken. But envy is a seed, and once watered, it grows. The day everything changed was when a royal gong echoed across the village square. A messenger arrived, clad in white and bearing the seal of Prince Obina of Onuora. His voice boomed that he read the decree. By order of His Highness, a great festival shall be held to choose the next queen of the land. Every maiden of age is invited. The air cracked with excitement. Mothers dug out wrappers hidden for years. Girls polished beads until their fingers bled, and even the bead makers walked by firelight late into the night. Laughter and chatter filled the village. Even Chisom, Madame Ebele's daughter, squealed with delight. But it was Nnenna, quiet Nnenna who felt her heart stir with a new kind of dream. That evening, she stepped into the fading sunlight and closed her eyes. She could almost see it. The palace lit with lanterns, the sound of flutes, the smell of roasted goat and jasmine, the marble floor shining beneath her bare feet. For once, she allowed herself to imagine being seen. That night, she unfolded a strip of golden cloth she had been saving since childhood. She smoothed it gently, her lips whispering a prayer. But Madame Ebele saw her. And that was when the plan took root. The day before the festival, Madame Ebele summoned Nnenna to the yard. Her voice was sweet, but her eyes were sharp. She handed her a long scroll. Wash every wrapper in this compound twice. Clean the goat pen until it smells of rose water. Fetch water from the far stream, not the near one. It is too muddy. Cook for the entire household, and not one single grain of rice must burn. If even one speck of dust remains, you will begin again. Nnenna's heart sank, but she bowed her head and began. The sun rose, boiled, and sank into dusk. Her fingers bled from scrubbing, her arms ached from pounding yam, her back bent from carrying heavy pots. Yet she did not stop. And just as the sky turned orange, she placed the last pot of stew on the fire. She exhaled, weak but proud. But in the shadows of the doorway, Madame Ebele stood with folded arms and narrowed eyes. So she still believed she would go. Then tonight I will remind her where she belongs. She slipped into her room and pulled out the rusted scissors. The scream tore through the compound like thunder. It was sharp, raw, and full of pain. Chickens scattered, goats bleated, neighbors froze mid-conversation. Inside the hut, Nnenna stood before the mirror, her trembling hands reaching for her hair. Her once glorious hair was gone, hacked, butchered, violated, tufts stuck out here, bald patches there, some beads still cling desperately to the ruins. She stared at her reflection. She didn't scream again. She didn't weep. She just blinked slowly, as if waiting for the girl in the mirror to blink back someone different. Then the door creaked. Madame Ebele leaned casually against the frame, lips twisted in cruel satisfaction. "What is it, Nnenna? You don't like your new look?" She stepped closer, eyes glinting. "You said you wanted to go to the palace, eh? Then go. Let us see if the prince wants a girl who looks like a plucked chicken." Nnenna didn't reply. She didn't fight. She didn't beg. She reached for a scarf, which was the only thing her late mother had left her. Slowly, reverently, she wrapped it around her head. Each knot she tied was a prayer, a vow. Then she turned. She didn't look at Madame Ebele. She didn't curse her. She simply walked out, barefoot, shoulders straight, into the night. There was only one place left in the world that felt safe. Beyond the yam fields, past the whispering palms, stood a small clay hut. Smoke curled lazily from his roof, and silence wrapped it like a shawl. It belonged to Mama Nkem, a woman so old no one remembered when she came. Some said she spoke with spirits, others claimed she healed the dying with a touch, but all agreed on one thing: her words could mend what the world had broken. Nnenna reached the door and collapsed to her knees. Her chest heaved, but her eyes held no more tears, only ashes. "They took it," she croaked. "My hair, my pride, my chance." The door opened. Mama Nkem stood there, her eyes cloudy with age but sharp as an eagle. She didn't look at Nnenna's scarf. She looked into her soul. Without a word, she pulled the girl inside. They sat in silence, the fire crackling, the night breathing softly through the thatched roof. Finally, Mama Nkem spoke. When the lioness walks into the forest, the trees do not ask about her mane. They part because they feel her power. With wrinkled hand, she untied the scarf and gently touched Nnenna's head. "They try to humble you with shame," Mama Nkem whispered, but shame trembles before women who rise. From a calabash, she drew calm oil, cowries, and thread. Patiently and tenderly, she braided what was left, tight rows that spoke of defiance, strength, survival. She wove in beads carved from bone and wood, ancient tokens that had passed through the hands of women who had endured worse and risen still. When she was done, she handed Nnenna a mirror. She looked not for beauty, but for proof of herself, and what she saw was not a victim. It was fire, quiet, low, but ready to burn through everything in its path.
The palace of Onuora pulsed with life. From the tallest tower to the lowest courtyard, it glowed as if the stars themselves had descended to dance. Drums thundered like rolling storms. Flutes wept sweetly through the night air. Perfume drifted from every corner. Jasmine, roses, and the rich scent of roasted goat. The marble floors shimmered under firelight, and laughter rose in waves that seemed to kiss the moon. The festival had begun. Daughters of every clan twirled in gowns of silk and lace. Their heads carried braids as high as monuments, glittering with beads and dusted with gold powder. Their mothers hovered close, whispering reminders to curtsy lower, to smile wider, to laugh softer. Hope and ambition wrapped the air like a heavy cloak. At the top of the grand staircase, Prince Obinna sat, his jaw resting on his hand. His eyes had glazed over long ago. He had seen more than 50 girls twirl before him, each bowing with practiced sweetness, each flashing jewels worth more than entire farms. Their beauty was striking, but it was all the same. Smiles too wide, words too shallow. His heart longed for something else, something real. And then the music shifted. It didn't stop, but the air trembled as if the drums themselves felt a new presence. Heads turned toward the palace gates. Whispers fluttered like startled birds. A girl had entered. She wore no crown of gold, no necklace of jewels. Her gown was not of silk, but a simple ash-colored dress, sewn by her own hands, flowing gently with each step. Her feet were bare, yet they kissed the marble as though the ground belonged to her. Her hair, what was left of it, was braided into neat rows and clung proudly to her scalp, defiant, unashamed. Woven through the braids were beads carved from bone and wood, tokens older than the palace itself, catching the light like thunder in silence. It was Nnenna. She did not enter begging for acceptance. She entered declaring her place. Her shoulders were straight, her head high, her eyes burning with quiet fire. The hall gasped. "Who let her in?" someone hissed. "She looks like a boy," another sneered. "She must be lost," came a cruel laugh. Their voices were sharp, meant to slice. Yet Nnenna's steps did not falter. Each one was a drumbeat of defiance, a whisper to the world, "I belong here." She walked as though the marble had been laid for her alone, as though every cruel word, every stolen thing, every hacked strand of hair had only carved her into something unbreakable. And the prince noticed. Prince Obinna straightened, his eyes locking onto her. He had seen hundreds of maidens, each glittering like polished brass. But this girl, barefoot, scarred and crowned with defiance, she moved like someone who had wrestled shadows and walked away holding light. She did not bow. She did not smile. She simply stood, unshaken. And in that stillness, the hall itself seemed to shift. But envy dies hard. From across the room, a noble girl draped in bright silk narrowed her eyes. Her voice, sweetened with venom, cut through the music loud enough for all to hear. Perhaps she cut her hair because she craved attention. Poor thing, so desperate to be noticed. Laughter followed, cruel, sharp laughter, the kind that stings like pepper rubbed into a wound. Nnenna did not flinch. She did not lower her eyes. She simply breathed, her silence louder than their jeers. And then another voice rose. "I disagree." It was deep, steady, commanding. The hall froze. Even the drummer's hands hovered mid-air. All eyes turned to the staircase. Prince Obinna had risen. He descended each step slowly, deliberately, his gaze never leaving Nnenna. When he reached the floor, he stopped before her, his presence filling the space like thunder clouds before rain. He said, "She is the most beautiful woman here, not because of her hair, not because of her dress, but because she walked in anyway." Silence swallowed the room, not one dared laugh now. Nnenna's chest rose and fell, but she did not bow her head. She met his gaze, not as a subject, but as an equal. For the first time that night, her lips curved into a faint smile. At the far corner of the hall, hidden among silk curtains and gold, stood Madame Ebele. Her eyes widened, her lips parted in horror. She had come to watch Nnenna's humiliation, to relish her downfall, but instead she was watching her rise. Her heart pounded with fury, her fingers trembling as though they might tear the fabric around her. For the first time, the woman who had schemed and stolen, who had caught and mocked, felt powerless. Her victim had become untouchable. Prince Obinna extended his hand. His palm was steady, his eyes certain. "May I have this dance?"
Nnenna's breath caught. She turned her head slightly, her eyes flicking toward the edge of the hall, where Madame Ebele locked in shadows. Their eyes met, one burning with hatred, the other glowing with quiet triumph. No words passed, none were needed. Then Nnenna turned back to the prince. "Yes," she said softly, but her voice carried like a drum beat. She placed her hand in his, and as they stepped onto the floor, barefoot girl and royal son, the palace changed. Not the lights, not the music, but the air. The whispers that followed were not cruel now. They were awed. "She walks like a queen. Look at her, she shines without gold. That's the girl with the short hair." But Nnenna did not hear them. She moved with grace, not borrowed from jewels, but carved from her own scars. She danced, not like one proving her worth, but like one who had already won. Weeks passed, and the kingdom rippled with rumor. From market stalls to river banks, from palm groves to clay huts, the story spread like wildfire. The barefoot girl, the girl with the short hair, the girl who defied shame. And then, one morning, the palace gates thundered open. A royal decree was announced. By command of His Highness, Prince Obinna of Onuora, the future queen shall be Nnenna of Ntoala. The kingdom erupted. Drummers pounded rhythms so fierce the earth shook. Women ululated until their voices cracked. Market stalls closed as people rushed into the streets, dancing, praising, singing. The girl they once mocked, the girl with no shoes, the girl they thought too plain, she was now the crown of the land. As for Madame Ebele, she did not scream. She did not beg. She did not fight. She simply disappeared, fading like smoke after fire has devoured everything. No one asked where she went. No one cared. Bitterness has no throne in a land ruled by courage. But Nnenna, she did not simply become queen of a palace. She became a symbol. For every girl who had been mocked for being too quiet, for every woman who had been shamed for being too different, for every heart that had been broken but still dared to rise. Her crown was not of gold, it was of fire. A fire that could never be caught, stolen, or destroyed. And so the story of Nnenna spread across generations. Mothers whispered it to daughters, elders told it by firelight, and every woman who heard it carried her name like a prayer. For sometimes, when they try to cut you down, they do not destroy you. They reveal the strength they can never take.